Hello, everyone.
Okay.
Hello,
Howdy.
people of the internet.
I'm Thomas Blair,
I am J. Todd Coleman.
and we're here today to talk about a Q&A with races and classes.
That is correct.
And probably other things based on
How long it takes them to drag us off topic.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so do you want to we'll start with jumping in on a quick overview, previously on Crowfall Live.
Yes, so previously we unveiled what we were doing.
Yes.
And we came up with a big chart, right?
Yep.
And it's like, this is the race and the class that you will be able to pick.
Yeah.
And then we went back and we started ripping apart the races and classes.
Yep.
And we have seen them actually functioning now on Akshay's branch.
Right. So we've started. We announced the race class effort. We actually have been gearing up towards it before we started.
Yeah.
We're now well into working on it, and I think I've seen, I want to say 3 or 4 alternate race class combos so far.
The Centaur Knight. I've
Yep.
seen the Ganetian Knight, the Human Knight, and what was the fourth one that you've seen? Was there anything that wasn't a knight?
Oh yeah, no, Minotaur Ranger.
Oh, okay.
I saw a Minotaur Ranger, which is pretty cool.
Well, there you go. So primarily what we're waiting on is a bunch of animation stuff, and we're reworking the prefabs. And then I've started building the racial passives. So every race will get not a passive, but a racial discipline. So every race will get their own discipline. Humans get humans. Jack, you want to just pop human behind us?
Yep.
So this is yet another thing into the customization mix. And isn't it amazing how we've gone from a game that was probably one of the least customizable to now incredible customization?
Right.
Right? So you're very familiar with disciplines by this point. Every race will get one. This is the human racial that you'll get. You can never change this out. It comes with a variety of things that you may or may not want to use. And what's exciting about this is the human bloodline. You'll see it right there. It's the first passive listed. Every race will get their own bloodline passive, and that can never be unequipped.
Right. So that's it's a set thing. Well, to put it in D&D terms, right? It's like night vision, right? Some races get it.
Yep.
Some races don't get it, and so it's something that you can't swap out. It's just inherent to who you are.
Yep.
So we use that basically on all of them. They all have one or more passes. Right?
Someone says less light on our faces, by the way. Apparently, we're blinding them.
That's for you, John.
That's for you.
Can you decrease the light? They
on
say
our faces?
We're too bright. We're glowing like angels. Don't just frown. Listen to the audience.
He's like, I don't know what they're talking about. So right now they're used to having 3 passives.
Right.
This will be a passive right before the initial one.
It's a 4th passive that you get.
It's it's
it
free.
Cannot be swapped out,
Yep.
but it is free.
But it is free. But we're putting it in here so you can basically look at a tooltip and see what it gives you. In this case, Human Bloodline gives you a 5% damage reduction to everything.
Right.
It's just a flat damage rate. Humans are always interesting. So going back to D&D, I think you can go a little bit on this one. Humans have always been just kind of like, no one wants to play humans.
Up until 5th edition.
It's
5th edition, they get an extra feat, which makes them actually pretty awesome.
How many years it was 5th edition?
Yeah, but that's not just a D&D thing, right? It's an MMO kind of thing.
Right.
Or RPG thing in general. As humans are like, they're kind of standard and baseline, and so they're usually historically have been a little bit lame. But where we've kind of seen RPGs headed more recently is to give them a little bit more flexibility in terms of their build.
Yep.
So, it's that whole master of many things, or jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
Kind of approach with humans. So we've done very similar things. One is we did give them a damage reduction passive. The other one, though, is the passive bonus slots. Right?
Yeah, so they actually get a 4th bonus passive that they can just load out.
Right.
And they get a bonus tray slot, so they'll have 9 powers on their tray as opposed to 8.
Right.
Which is just, they'll have a lot of options.
Right, so it makes them basically more versatile. Right?
Yep, they're not as cool as being a horseman.
Right.
Right, but they get a whole lot of options.
So, Mr. Blair,
okay,
talk to me about how dodges used to work.
So dodges used to be on the archetypes. So the knight came with a block or a dodge, right? A lot of the archetypes had just dodges. What we've done is we've moved that right click up to the racial discipline. So humans now get a dodge roll, and a knight will get a block from his class.
Right, which he can then choose to use or not. So if he wants to load out his right click with a block, he can. If he'd rather be a dodgy knight, I don't know if you would, because that kind of gives
Block
away.
is pretty good.
Block is pretty damn good, but you certainly could.
Yep.
And we also means that by doing that, now disciplines can give you additional things as well. So we could have a discipline that gives you a particular type, an acrobatic discipline, gives you a better dodge. So you dodge an extra 2 meters, right?
Sure.
We could load that on the discipline, and you could say, hey, I'm gonna give up my normal dodge because I'm gonna replace it with this acrobatic dodge. And that would actually be a really cool thing to add, and very, very extensible now in the system. It's very achievable.
Since you can only load out 1 right click, we don't really have to worry about people loading out 4 dodges.
Right.
Or whatever, right? So
that's true.
Right. You get 1 right click, and if you want to play a dodgy knight, go for it. You have that option. And then the final one is the candle that burns, which is for 12 or 15 seconds, they get increased damage, but their resource costs are increased. So it's got a little trade-off to it. And again, you can use any of these or none of these.
And that's a passive or that's an active?
That would be an active that would go into their trade slot.
Okay.
So if you look at the... Billy has actually done a really good job on the language of our powers. So if you look at it, you know that Bloodline is a passive. We're going to make it a little slightly different colored or shaped, so you know that it's for free. Sidestep is blue, which means it's a right-click power. All of our right clicks are blue. And Candle That Burns looks like a trade power. So you can tell that it's a self-buff based on that icon because it's a triangle up.
So Kraken just brought up a great question. Hi, by the way, Kraken, good to see you. Which is, are we going to put in racial training skill lines? So we've talked about that some.
Yeah.
The question that I asked to Mr. Blair is, would those trees be deep enough to actually allow for any or to make it worthwhile?
Right.
And we're still looking at it. Clearly, it could tie into all of these. It could tie into your passives. It could tie into your stats and things like that. If we think that there's enough gameplay there to make it worthwhile, I'm not opposed to doing it. I actually think it'd be pretty cool.
It's a lot of work on us, but you've never been opposed to design doer?
Let's be specific. It's a lot of work on you.
On me. Yeah.
So I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, most of our skill trees have been built in the middle of the night by me. It's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time, and you need a lot of time to think about what would be fun in those trees, which is on my list of things to talk about. We are getting a nice tree update here. The visuals and the way it works a little bit. You'll see that in a future update. Jack, could you show us the Wood Elf racial?
Yeah, let's do another race real quick, because that's interesting.
So you'll be able to see the difference between the human as well as the Wood Elf, and we can talk about the Wood Elf.
Wood Elf is totally OP right now.
Wood Elf is so OP. So one of the things you'll notice is we definitely have a different set of offsets in there for the race. And then their Bloodline power gives them Trail Master. Now, everyone has been familiar with Trailblazer, which is the 15% passive movement that I just took away from everybody. So everybody used to get it. Now only elves and centaurs and elkin get the out-of-combat enhanced movement speed because, hey, we're starting to make things different. We'd put it on everybody because it was really useful in testing. Now you're going to start to see differences between the races now that we can do that in a future build. However, these guys get Trail Master, which is a 25% out of combat movement speed, which is super OP. They also get Dissipate.
Oops.
Oh, it's thinking. Did we lose anything?
Are we still good? Spinning.
Okay.
Are we still good? Can you guys hear us?
Okay.
I guess they'll let us know if they can.
Yeah. So someone said humans OP, Wood Elves OP. Yeah. Our goal is to make them all feel OP because that way you feel good about taking your race.
You know, and as they said in The Incredibles, if everyone's special, no one is. Well, wait, that's not what they said. They said if no one's special, everyone is.
Yes, there you go.
If everyone's super. Anyway, they said something. All right, so back to Wood Elf. So camouflage is really, really kick-ass. So talk about that one.
Okay, so camouflage is a toggle power. You guys are all familiar with toggle powers because lots of people have been playing the Bard. And all of the Bard songs are toggle powers. All the Troubadour songs are toggle powers. This one is a toggle power on a different toggle group, which means... And you're going to see this with the Cleric because they have toggles, and the Legionnaire racials have some toggles. If you are playing, you could have 3 toggles running at the same time as long as they're in a different group. Each of them takes 2 seconds to cast. If you get CC'd, it shuts them all off, so you would have to recast them. But it's a new mechanic that we started using with the Bard stuff, and now we're kind of, just like all of our toys, we're using it. We're using it, right?
Now that we have new functionality, let's use it.
Yep. So camouflage is a toggle power that you toggle on, and when you stop moving, you automatically go into stealth. It doesn't swap your bar, but you get removed from everybody else's client. There's they're going to make
predator effect,
the
right?
predator. You called it the predator suit when you saw me demoing it. It's like, yeah, it pretty much is a predator suit. It drains your stamina over time, so you can't sit in predator mode forever. But you engage it. When you stop moving, you disappear. As soon as you start moving, you break out of it, the predator shimmer, and then you're running around. And it's just, Wood Elves get that for free, in addition to super fast out of combat movement speed and dissipate, which Todd has been calling Misty Step for a long time.
Well, it's the equivalent of the D&D spell Misty Step.
I'm probably just going to rename it Misty Step. So
as long as we don't get in trouble, I don't know. I have no idea if that's allowed or not. But
Misty,
that's basically what it is.
We could put an accent over the
It's Misty Step.
But basically, what dissipate is, as you know, is the druid right-click blink power. All Wood Elves will get that. So that's just kind of a Wood Elf thing, just like dodges are other races things.
Durenthal just asked the question, will attack break me out of that stealth, I assume?
Yes, obviously. Yeah. And you can't, if you're in combat, you can't engage it, so it's an out-of-combat thing. So you're not going to be seeing people in combat when they stop moving go stealth.
So one thing that I want to point out about these that we can't do yet, but I'd like to do is these are Wood Elf powers. So I would love to be able to mark a parcel as a woodland or forest parcel and then enable these only there, right? So that by being a Wood Elf, I'm really fast and I'm really well hidden when I'm in a forest. When I'm in the middle of a keep, it doesn't work, right? Or it would have to be a keep that was built in a forest parcel. So I think that would be a nice way to kind of pull the power level down on these guys. You still get all the interest and it'd be really cool. But again, it goes back to the idea that I can be really cool when I'm in my element, but when I'm in another element, I'm not quite as cool.
Right.
And I have to be careful and kind of plan my play session accordingly.
So, yeah, we don't have the tech for that. But
no, we don't. But it certainly is something that wouldn't be a hard stretch to get to, and I think it would be a nice way for us to balance some of these. So
those are the only two that I'm going to show today.
Okay.
Just because we want to keep some of the stuff in the bag, and because I'm still building a lot of it.
Yeah. So I will say though is that we went through Blair and I sat down with each of these races and talked about it in exactly these terms. Like, all right, well, what do we think would be really cool for these guys that could be a racial thing that gives you a bit of a flavor of another class or another discipline. It's kind of like a free discipline, right? It's like a free major.
It actually is in fact a free major,
right? That's and under the covers in the system. That's actually the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, you'll notice the tooltip is the same, and it was when we started building this. It's like, do we need to make these look different? It's like, no, we just paid for this expensive discipline system.
Yeah, let's just use that.
Let's just use that, and boom, you can see the results already. And for us, it's just building the powers rather than worrying about waiting weeks and weeks for a whole bunch of new tech.
Let's can we real quick before we move on from that, you want to talk about tray swap outs, because we've talked about that too, and that'll be really cool in terms of giving people some abilities. Like, you know, if we have a discipline that gives you a stealth mode, it can actually give you the stealth tray, right? Archery can give you the ranged weapon archery tray.
They haven't been playing with archery because we've been waiting on the animation, so they don't have the only one that's modifying trays right now is, I believe, Scimitar Master, and that's taking away a tray.
Right.
So we are about to do a tray. Basically, right now it's very ad hoc, and it's kind of...
Yeah, we're going to clean that up. The interface wasn't really originally set up for this, so it needs some cleanup. But the idea there is that I could take a discipline like archery, and it enables a new tray for me so that I can change my loadout when I shift into that, and that we would limit the total number of trays
to three. Right now, everyone's going to get a melee, a ranged, and a stealth tray.
Right.
And you will have all of those trays whether or not you can see them. We just activate them based on you having those disciplines.
Right. And we could, like Werewolf, we could say gives you another melee tray, for example, and you could load that out, but you'd still be limited to only 3. So you couldn't, basically just to kind of keep it from getting too out of control.
Right. And what they've noticed, because they've only had the ability to press T to toggle between trays until now, what's going to happen is we're going to map each tray to a unique key. So if you want to make your range key T, pressing T will put you in range. Pressing T again will put you back in melee. If P, that's a bad one. If I, nope, inventory, L. If L happens to be your stealth tray, L will put you in stealth. Pressing L again will put you out. You'll be able to use these as toggles. And we've been lacking an input manager for these things, which is really makes it feel bad when you toggle, because you'll start mashing the button and not realizing that
Right.
you're toggling hundreds of times while you're just mashing that button, and you could end up right where you started.
So this is another one of those areas, just like key bindings, where we know there's work that needs to be done there.
Yep.
It's just a question of priority. I mean, we only have so many people. Like Akshay would be the natural guy to work on, I would assume, the key binding stuff.
It is in
right?
fact on his plate, but
it's secondary to race class. I want the
Yep.
race class stuff in first. So he'll get to it. It's just everything has a priority, and sometimes things just kind of get thrown to the wayside. We will get back to them, I promise. We just aren't there yet.
and we know we need to do it.
Yeah.
It's not like we don't know we need to do these things.
So speaking of priorities, Nicholas Linewriter just asked, what's taking higher priority right now, more disciplines or race class? So they're kind of going in parallel. I would say race class is probably getting more attention right now, right?
By more disciplines, does he mean more majors? Definitely we're not making more majors right now.
Yeah.
I'm making all of these the racial disciplines, and probably before we make more combat disciplines, I did prototype the first scout discipline
Cool.
list, right? So we got in. Have we talked about the map yet?
We've talked in general terms about the map and Fog of War, but I think the last time we brought it up in a chat, I said I have a cool idea for what I'd like to do with the scouting and the map making. So that's moved from a cool idea we'd like to do to something I can test in our build.
Was that like a year ago?
I don't know. It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
So
yeah, and there are stats there, and there is a discipline. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to break it out into two.
So we've got at least two skills, right? You've got what's my visibility radius as I'm clearing the fog of war as I walk around the world.
Yep.
And the other is what's my cartography
and that's
skill.
what I've got them all on Scout now, so T-Bone could test them.
So let's back up and explain the scouting and fog of war system, because it's a cool one.
Yeah, you want to talk about it?
Okay, so historically, up until now, you log into a game, either into any world, campaign or kingdom, and you basically, well, the only way you could bring it up before now actually was the edit kingdom map. So in the campaign world, there actually wasn't a map.
You didn't know what the map. We would print one out and put it on the web.
That's right. Yeah.
And then people would be like, "I think I'm here."
Yeah. So so there's been some pretty significant updates to the map since you guys have last checked in on map progress. So we now have the world map able to be accessed in kingdoms and in campaigns.
Yep.
You bring it up, and there's even an indicator that says you are here. Always a nice thing to have on a map, right? When you first come into a world, though, there's fog of war around that world. So really. And you don't even get an idea of where you are in the world since it centers.
Yep.
So you've got a little spot of light around your character and the temple. And that's all you know about the world. And as you wander around the world, that fog of war goes away, right? So one of the skills we have basically determines how much visibility you get in clearing your fog of war as you wander around the map. And we hadn't talked about day-night cycle, but it actually is different for day versus night.
Correct.
So you can see more of the map or reveal more of the map in the day than you can at night. Now, our worlds are artificially small right now, so that is going to make it feel a little weird because you're going to come in and walk around the world and you're going to be able to clear it out quicker than you normally would be able to do. But again, we're still in testing, not more than play testing.
Right.
So you know, just imagine it with a larger world. So that's one skill, is how much can I see. Then there's also cartography, which is allowing me to, so in your recipes list now, there's a new item called a blank map. And you craft a blank map. It's now in your inventory. When you're standing somewhere in the world, which you are at all times when you're logged in, you can right click that and it will actually scroll the area of the world on that map. If I then go back to town and I give that map, now a scrawled map object of Blair, and he's never been where I was when I drew that map, and he right clicks on it, it's going to clear out his fog of war on his map to show that area.
Yep.
So, and the other thing that's interesting about this system is it's not an updated in real time scrawled map. It is a snapshot of how that area looked when I drew it.
Yep.
So if I go up and I find an enemy city and I can see that their walls are 25% complete in one area and 100% complete in another, and I scroll a map and I give it to Blair, and a week later he comes back, it's going to have to re-update his fog of war because they may have completed those walls in the meantime. So the goal here was not just to have scouting be a one-time thing, but to have scouting be a thing that you need to refresh throughout the course of the campaign.
And it's all working.
And that is actually all in and functional. I've played it. It's probably still got some bugs because we haven't exhaustively tested it yet.
Yep.
But when you log in, you will actually see the fog of war, and you'll be able to walk around and clear it out. You'll be able to craft and scroll a map. We haven't tied it in yet to the skills, right? So it's just there are no skills. It's a set amount during the day and a set amount during the night that you clear fog of war, and it's a set amount that you scroll when you scroll a map.
But it increases when you load out the scout discipline.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's already in.
Those stats work, and it definitely works when you gives you a bigger range when you equip that the scout discipline.
So Screeling asked the question, can you pickpocket other teams' maps? So these are just items in your inventory. So we don't have pickpocketing in yet, though you guys talked about it on the last live stream. They are absolutely tradable. They are lootable. They eventually will be pickpocketable. So you definitely can do that. So.
Yep. Can we turn in the map to a table station also? From Kane.
So we've talked about that, and we definitely can do it. I wanted to try the system out first without that. So here's why. Right now, what we just created is a really cool social dynamic, right? I mean, you guys, you can see that we've leaned on crafting a lot as a social dynamic. In fact, some people have argued we're now leaning on it too much, and you may be right. We may pull it back. But the idea of having other players and having reasons to want to seek out other players for their area of focus is really important to us, right? That's a key part. So my fear with the map table is that it effectively breaks down a one-to-one connection, which is between somebody who scouted and made a map and gave it to one other person to use, is it turns that into a one-to-many relationship. So one scout could now effectively broadcast that explored area to 25 or 50 or whatever players. And I'm a little nervous about that because I really like this social tie. So before we make the jump to actually making it a one-to-many broadcast situation, I wanted to try it one-to-one and see how heavily we could lean on it. I just wanted to feel it out first.
Yeah, we talked about it, and
talked about it. It's totally doable in the system.
It's just we didn't decide to pull that trigger.
Yeah, we're waiting on it because sometimes I want to wait and see how you like to taste the soup as you're cooking it, right? Sometimes you might find, oh my God, we've already got too much salt. Let's not put more salt in. So that's the feeling I had on this one because it's an experiment. Yep. I think it's a cool one, and I'm excited to see it come along. But it is still an experiment. So. And
Scout will probably also get the Trail Blazer attached to their major discipline.
Yep.
Just for faster movement.
Yeah. Which is cool. Will those stack?
Right now, if you have two sources of Trailblazer, it automatically upverts into Trailmaster.
Okay.
I did that. I'm a little happy with that because
cool.
I was like, you know what? It'd be really cool if I had two sources, if it upgraded, because it's costing me a major discipline.
So that's an area that, and I just want to call this out. That's an area that's going to be a challenge for us from now till release, which is we decided to make a system with an unbelievably wide degree of customization. There are going to be high nails that stick up that are balance issues where a particular combination is just overpowered. That's inevitable with this kind of system.
We've already been fighting those.
We're already fighting it. We knew going into it was going to happen. I thought that we kind of made it clear that we knew it was going to happen. We decided that we were willing to do that. We decided we were willing to swallow that because it's cool. So it's a thing. We're going to deal with it. The only way to fight that would be to not allow as much customization.
But
But we don't want to do that. We love this system. We want the customization. So we decided, all right, let's just wade in, which is why, I mean, for example, our disciplines adapt themselves to different, resource types, right?
Yep,
like rage
absolutely.
or stamina or whatever. That's fairly crazy. In fact, I actually warned Blair and Hallish, that seems like it might be too crazy, but they said, well, we know it's going to result in a lot more work and balancing, but we're willing to eat that between now and launch.
Yeah, because, again, it gives us way more customization. And you have to get out of here.
So I have to go. I have a call, unfortunately. I have to get on. So you guys going to dig in a little bit more on your thoughts on racing class?
We'll answer some more questions on racing class, as well as probably any powers questions they have, since Mr. Hallish is going to sub in for you.
All right, so while I'm getting off stage, I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in today, and always thank you so much for supporting our project. We wouldn't be here without you, and it means the world to us. And without further ado, here's Mr. Hallish. Thanks.
Just get John O'Neill. Hey, and look who we have today.
Hello, everybody.
It's Mr. Hallish. And talking about firefighting. We have been firefighting a lot of the discipline combinations on the live service for the We knew it was going to happen,
Yeah.
just like Todd said.
Indeedly do.
And it's just, there was some broken things in there, just broken by means non-functional.
Yeah.
Like as you found this week, there was one that, it was Friday, you're like, how did this ever even work?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it in fact probably didn't work, which we fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So there are those, and then there are the combinations that are causing problems.
Right.
Like, would you want to talk about any of your favorites?
Well, I mean, so the noble, what was it? Noble blood actually was causing a little bit of a stir. It was actually being blamed for a particular, like a build that was too good. Basically, it's the intention of that was to give you a resource hit every time you healed a certain amount of damage. And so it was sort of being blamed for some problems that the Templar was having, and I looked into it, and it actually wasn't working at all.
That's right.
This is part of the thing where we need to, try to figure out, basically listen to what you're saying and try to figure out really what's actually happening, right? Because a lot of times it's not immediately obvious, or it may seem like it's one thing and it turns out to be another thing.
Right.
And so that led to, for example, taking a closer look at the Templar and some of the things, basically the combination of being able to reduce damage by a lot by parrying, which basically it's essentially block, but it's a more expensive version of block, and combining that with healing, self-healing. And so it came down to, hey, you know what? Blocking and healing and stacking up a bunch of heals, surprise, surprise, really good, really good. And it wasn't so much, so looking at abilities like rehabilitation is another one that for now I basically just changed it so you can only heal targets. Now granted that immediately would mean that people who are trying to make builds like that are just going to look at other heals. Right. So I mean, it's not really a real solution, but it is sort of a stopgap. I mean, I could talk about.
We could talk about the real solution that we talked about that I've been poking at,
which I was working on until just now when Gordon came by and it's like, hey, we need you on camera because Todd needs to be on a call. And so that is to basically.
Well, so we knew this was coming.
Yeah.
We absolutely.
We're not surprised by this.
We are not surprised in any way, and the healers felt this right off the bat, which is, hey, my healing isn't better than a melee guy.
Right.
And we knew that. And we knew we had to come up with a solution.
Just a non-healer, period, right?
Right.
Not even so much even.
But now that we've kind of survived the initial impact of disciplines, right? The boom, here's 300 new powers.
Oh my, we made it.
So now that we've crossed that hill, we can move into things that we knew we had to do with that, which is we need to make healers better at healing, and the people who are dealing damage less good at healing. Right. So let's talk about the solution there that we've been.
Yeah, so I mean, the real solution is obviously once gearing and everything is perfect, that'll just wash out. But in the the interim sort of stopgap measure, what we're doing basically is we're gonna jack up the healers. Not everybody, but the healers specifically. So Druid and Legionnaire, and then Cleric when that exists, and we get rid of the Legionnaire.
When we get rid of the Legionnaire,
jack up their spirit, and so that will effectively give them lots and lots of support power. Right.
So spirit converts into support power. If you didn't know that as a healer,
yeah,
it is an attribute, and since everyone has had very similar white quality,
just trash
level attributes because you don't have it, you'll notice that on the on the racial not passive, but the racial disciplines I had up earlier, there was a whole chunk for attributes.
Yeah.
Right. So attributes are starting to become more important, and as you get better quality, and we're going to naturally give the healers more spirit.
So anyway, right. So we're doing that, and that combined with basically removing a little bit of the. So the way things are sort of balanced is both damage and healing. Half the contribution is just built in to the actual ability of the power itself, and the other half comes from your weapon and your stats and stuff like that. And so what we're doing to sort of basically make support power more important is putting more of the contribution into the support power side of things and less into the built-in just part of the power itself.
Yep. So since heals rely on support power more, support power will be more important, and since spirit is the driver for support power, and the support classes will have more spirit, then they will have more support power. Their heals will get better. And naturally, any discipline that has any healing component will just be better for support guys. and the melee guys will not have those, more than likely because they chose attack power rather than support power. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make a hybrid build, but it just means that they're going to have to re-swizzle.
Yeah, they're gonna give up some...
You can't go all damage and all healing.
Right.
Basically, you're going to have to pick. So let's look and see. We haven't looked at a lot of questions so far.
Okay.
But that gives you a heads up on what we're doing to solve what we see as the next biggest nail, which is the damage guys healing really well. And you're not going to see that this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Attributes don't seem to pass values to stats right now. You sure that's going to work, according to Durnthal? And they do pass values. It's just they're so small right now.
Yeah, they're pretty
and you can't increase them very well. Right? The only way to get an increase to an attribute right now is to raise...
Play a different archetype.
No, it's actually in the vessel tree. There's
okay, that's right. Yeah, I forgot.
There are some increases in there, and there are very small increases by design, and you will start seeing that to change fairly quickly.
Right. I mean, to prove that to yourself, just start something, basically create a different archetype that has different stats, and you'll see a different minor adjustments to like your attack power or your health or whatever.
Let's see. Thoughts on the champion heal, Ultimate Warrior? I think that's the name.
So some of them, like for example, Ultimate Warrior, I believe is just flat percentage based and won't be affected by this. I mean, that's so basically anything that is like a built-in sort of.
We
deal.
tend to separate class mechanics from a lot of the discipline options, right? They still have their second wind, and the Ultimate Warrior just heal.
Right, and like for example, regens also don't. Like just your health regen in combat, out of combat, those don't use support power at all. So those will that will stay the same. All right, let me go change that.
Someone says I cranked my physical stats in the vessel tree and noticed nothing. Well, we'll have to look at that, Durnthal. Physical stats. Again, the conversion right now is something like 0.3 attack rating per strength.
I would have to look. It's not a lot. I mean. Right now, right, because your values are in the low 20s, right? I mean, we're expecting you to be able to get much higher values than that.
Yeah, when you combine the skills, vessels, plus an actual blue quality,
good quality limbs and
right.
From
once you have that, plus the racials, which is also part of the budget for attributes. Yeah, when I
experimentation.
When I use the word budget, we budget things. So we say, hey, where are all the sources of this stat? Where does it blow out the budget? And we try and keep things in line. You may need to check the attribute. Strength only increases movement speed. So
yeah, we'll have to see. Well, so I mean, different archetypes also get different things.
Yes. So attributes are not universal to all the classes, right? So intelligence for a confessor raises her attack power right now, and in fact, I think that's in the future. The knight gets dex and strength increases attack power, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't remember
I think it's like 0.2 for strength and 0.1 for dex increases his attack power. So for the different classes, they have different ratios, and different things increase different things.
Yep.
So that will become clearer once we get the character sheet online, which kind of got pushed back. I mean, it's ready to be. We have a bunch of UIs that are ready to get implemented. We're just waiting for engineering time as they make their way through things. That should get clear in the future. Will Scimitar Druids get healing back? Well, the whole design around Scimitar Druid was that you sacrifice your healing. You focus solely on death. And that's just, we didn't want to make everything equal. Everyone has access to all the heals. It was just like, hey, we have this idea, and you are completely sacrificing everything in the life tray for all of the death stuff. Let's see how it works. And you get block and the other things that come with that tray. So, and you also spew out the little, the self-healing orbs, if I'm not mistaken. Is there anything that increases mitigation?
Well, armor, skills. I mean, if you mean attribute-wise, no. There isn't actually an attribute that actually increases your
correct. Mitigation. Yeah, I don't think there's any attributes that are parents to the mitigation system.
Yeah, that's pretty much all Mitigation pretty much all comes from either skills or equipment, and then rarely, maybe a power.
How do I build a scout? Well, in the future, you will have a new major discipline called Scout, and I'm still debating whether I should bust off the cartography components of that, which is scribing the map, and what other fun things to give scouts just in general. Obviously, a movement speed thing.
Right. Definitely share, any ideas you have. We always want to hear them. So
they may get a form of the Wood Elf Predator camouflage because it's a fun toy.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what scouts get.
Mask scent.
Mask scent. What would that do?
I don't know. We need animals for that.
We actually do have animals in the new map.
Right.
But
more animals.
We would need aggressive animals, right? Rather than
I guess Hellcats.
I guess at nighttime it could lower your aggro range potentially. I don't know. We'll come up with fun stuff. Attributes gained from leadership seem lackluster. Is that being looked at? We haven't made a skills pass in a long time for the actual stat values that you are getting. I'm sure we will in the future, but I think we're never going to make it such that it's super huge. We didn't want to dogleg and go exponential on the difference between a super skilled, advanced, trained, and just someone who has it. There is an increase there, but it's not like a quadrupling or...
Right, it's not like a...
Right? It's not like going from 10 health to 100,000 health. Excuse me. And it's just to keep things... I mean, PvP is a large focus, right? It is the focus. So we don't want to make it such that I beat you with my stat stick and you have no chance. Since you've said that clerics will be getting more powers than they can slot, does that mean that other classes will eventually get more powers too? And potentially?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, now that, loading out your abilities is a thing. I mean, that sort of thing is much easier, right? That's honestly, we actually sort of started that with the knight, right? Because once we gave knight a different form of their charge up
right.
shield.
Once we gave them shield, the nth variety of shield, bash, slam, whatever word we used for that one. Yeah, that was a thing. But with the cleric, it was a focus because we wanted to build a way built into it that you could go more offensive or more defensive as the cleric, right? So you now they have a lot of dual options just loaded out. But I'm not going to give away too much of the cleric stuff yet.
Scoop ourselves.
Is this going to turn into a video, or is the chat the full Q&A? This was an addition to, so we still plan on doing our monthly Q&A from the Ace Development partners, but this was supposed to be in addition to. Am I the only one not buffering? Hey, we frozen on this end.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a little bit of lag.
Okay. So we can still see the chat scrolling though. So as long as you guys can still hear us, that's great. Are all classes getting a revamp for the race class split, or just Ranger, Stalker, and Legionnaire Cleric? I don't know that the other ones need such a huge overhaul as those ones, but there is going to be continual polish all the way through. I mean, every now and then you're just like, okay, we need to go back and look at.
Yeah.
This power doesn't make sense 2 years after it was made, right? So we need to just kind of give it a little bit of loving. That will happen.
Right.
Throughout.
Right. Forever and ever.
That's part of maintaining the live game. When will we see the new cleric? Soon. Soon. We always love to say that. She's, or the cleric is in the pipe. I wouldn't anticipate it before you see race classes, though.
Yeah.
Because that is the first one that we're not building tied to a body type. Every class that we had built up to this point was an archetype, and we had built it as a specific model with these specific animations. With the race class split underway, we're now able to build it for all of the races that get the class. So you have to see one before you see the other. Any updates on what will be in the stealth tree? It is still a thing that I have in the background on my machine. I always like to keep the skill trees open, at least the rough kind of giant worksheets that we have. And when an idea pops up, I write it in there. I still would probably say we're gonna do the Ranger Stalker merge before we see stuff, because that way we have all the toys.
Right. Oh, right.
Right. There's no sense in building a bunch of skills for things that we really haven't put in game yet, because we kind of want those stats and things. We're going to discover stuff as we build something.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what happens. And we'll find ways to make it better, ways to make side parallel paths to that. So we'll probably build that before we do an actual skill tree on it. You stated, that's interesting. You stated that scimitar druids get blocked. That's not the case. Oh, is it just that we gave them the access to shields and they need to take Shield Master to get block?
They would have. Yeah, it's not part of the base scimitar.
That's right. You get a shield.
You get access to use a shield, I think is.
The shield and the scimitar. That's right. Okay. Thank you, McSnuffy Fluffy. However, if you take Shield Master, I think it also opens up Shield Fighter and Secutor to them once they have a shield.
I'll have to look.
There are a lot of things now.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have 50 majors now with the new Scout, and
do we?
There's 50 majors,
okay.
And that's why somebody was like, "Hey, you building more?" And it's like there comes a point where I'd rather make the ones that we have better and add more things into it rather than create
at least find the bugs with them.
Yeah. Than just throwing even more. Because once we have the race ones in there, the harvesting and the exploration ones and the crafting ones, that's probably going to put us in the mid 70s.
Right.
And that's a whole lot of.
We're not even done, right?
There's still a whole lot to do. So, because we haven't hit the spheres of gameplay, as I like to call them. Let's see more questions. Somebody new. Can we get access to the combo system slots like 3.3E? Slotting there would open up more buttons without more trays. Oh, I see what they want to do.
Their own combos?
They want to ad hoc combos. And
yeah,
the combo stuff is baked pretty much into kind of the core of Crowfall. That was one of the first things we did. And the idea there was the animations would tell you the powers that were coming. Again, it's part of the action combo routes. So you see this animation being played, you know how to react. And it also builds in cast time without actually putting in a cast time to get to a thing. So if you have to play this power before getting to this CC, then effectively the time to get to that is your cast time. But we've built that into animation because all of our powers are instants. And so no, we don't want to let you ad hoc make these things because we very specifically designed them to do a thing. Will guinea pig knights and clerics be able to use pistols?
Well, so I mean, clerics, I guess we haven't really...
They get hammers.
They get hammers, okay, we said that.
Yep.
So hammers are not pistols.
So no, the pistol is not a racial thing, even though there was a racial that you wanted to put in there with explosives.
Right.
So they have access to gunpowder, but they don't have access to pistols. That's a duelist only thing. McFluffy Snuffy, guys, we can't take Shield Mastery and Scimitar on the Druid. I'd always intended for you to be able to take Shield Mastery on the Druid. Maybe it's just an oversight.
Possibly.
In the equip.
There were some, I mean, there were a lot of, or at least not a lot, but some last minute switches of, like, for example, there was the like with the healing abilities, letting everybody use them rather than just healers, for example. Like we had ideas about maybe how restrictive we wanted to be with disciplines, and so that's why there's occasionally you find a mismatch between what, for example, what the crafting recipe says and what the final product says, for example, just because we.
That's right, because they were done at different times.
Yeah, they're done at different times, and we were debating, hey, and we fell on the side of, hey, let's just be more open rather than more restrictive with these things if there wasn't a good compelling reason, like weapon, for example.
Right. So I'll look. I wrote that down. I'll look at that after I get out of here.
It's possible that that's one of those that just got.
Because I'd always intended for them to be able to get a shield, and that's why I mentioned block.
Yeah.
Because I totally thought that they were able to do
I
that.
initially tested her with the shield abilities when I did sound effects, so it used to work.
All right. We'll have to look then.
Yep. Let's see. You guys have scrolled a lot. Have you ever considered giving the knight rage and tying the state of their rage bar to increased mitigations?
I have never had that exact thought. I mean, as far as energy mechanics and stuff go, I mean, I know that Stamina Knight was always one of something Blair wanted to try. Stamina and Rage, not exactly the same thing.
No.
Could we? Sure, we could. I mean, are we going to? I don't know.
We can do many things. The question is, should we? And
right.
Because we could endlessly futz with those. Mm-hmm. At some point, you're like, okay, let's.
Right. And having played, I mean, and I played systems like this where you have a meter that slowly builds as you as you do stuff in combat, having that tie into different mechanics, for example, whether it be your damage or your mitigation. Right, I can think of two. I can think of two classes and games I worked on that actually had those mechanics. So it's not like, I mean, we know how to do those. Yeah. Do those things.
I think there's even some disciplines that do that with the current rage guys.
There is. Yeah, there's one that actually heals you based on your rage max. So it's all things we could do. Would it be fun? Who knows? Because I mean, there's some downsides with gameplay like that, and that when you're on the low. I mean, any rage player will tell you, right? Like, if you're on the low end of the bar, life sucks, right? If you're on the high end, it's like, hey, everything's candy. So I mean, I guess I have no definitive answer for that.
The C slot, the ultimate slot, is not slotted from class to class. Currently, you can't swap out a new power into the C. I think that's mainly because we haven't built a lot of ultimate.
Yeah, we don't have a lot. Do we even have an alternate?
I don't think there's any alternate ultimates in the...
Until Cleric, basically, right? Did we give him...
Yeah, yes, we gave the Cleric 2 ultimates.
So, it will definitely work by the time Cleric
yes. And I think the Ganetian Racial has an alternate ultimate.
That's right.
Right,
that's
so there are a few cases where we're slowly putting it in.
Yeah.
It's just those things are...
Yeah, a lot of stuff to do.
A lot of stuff to do. Master, I have no clue what Screeling's question is. Would you remap weapon disciplines to races, Master of Pistols, for example? Yeah, and the answer to that is probably not. So, if you think about right now, imagine you'd have to map up the class and then the race for all the disciplines. That's just another...
Yeah.
It's another thing. Excuse me. But... we might have to do that for things like the cloak slot. And, right? Because only the human model has the cloak built into it. Mm-hmm. So centaurs, for example, centaur knights don't get cloaks.
Right.
Right. So we may have to do that. And I think the whole polearm series of weapons are going to be centaur only.
Right. Just because everybody doesn't...
We don't have the animation.
Right. But they're there, and we don't want to throw them away.
Right, and we already did that work, so it's like, okay, what can we do with that? Well, I guess centaurs can take polearms if they want to. Will Ganetian knights and clerics have the burrow blink, so you can blink an actual tank heal DPS style group through the keep walls instead of just duelists? And this is coming from Rymart. I do believe the notes for the burrow, the racial burrow, is that they do not get a stealth check.
Yeah.
Tunnel which is the power that lets you blink, is actually a duelist class power.
Duelist stealth power. Stealth tray.
Stealth tray, yes. But burrow, so the ability to go underground and move around, is a Ganetian racial.
Right, but it's not going to make you invisible, so people will see your dirt clump.
So yes, we're still going to tweak those. The skill tree. Here's Durnthal. The skill trees on the older classes are weak compared to the newer classes. The nature of development and going first, right? The knight was always our the first thing that we built, and
Curse of the First.
the curse of the first. So with that, which is why we always go back and loop around.
Right.
And again, that's, I mean, the reason we haven't done that, it's more important for us to build new things and keep forward progress going. And this is, we could talk about this for a second, which is, it's funny because Gordon every week is always on the let's do live stuff, and Todd and I are on the other hand are on the hey, let's get the new stuff done. So it's this delicate balance of maintaining the game that you guys show up every weekend to play and getting new stuff in. So we generally spend a day and a half working on bugs and stuff from the weekend playtest. So the next weekend's build will have some fixes and stuff in it, but we have to keep forward progress moving. You just absolutely have to. Otherwise, we could spend the entire week just tweaking and balancing what we currently have, and we would get nothing new. So you notice how you go a couple weeks and then boom, you get the new big drop. Those wouldn't happen if we weren't constantly working on what's coming next. And that's just a reality of
Sure. I mean, that said, though, I mean, with the switching from archetypes to classes, we're going to have to go back and touch, touch those trees. So, I mean,
and we always knew that
time to do that.
Even without classes, we knew that we'd have to go back and do a big skills pass. But it's just
not even like we didn't have we couldn't do the things we can do today a year ago.
Yeah, right? I think when we built Knight, we had attack power and crit and resources, and that was it. So that's what, in fact, Knight, Confessor, and Legionnaire all had, and we're in fact deprecating the Legionnaire skill tree and replacing it with a brand new Cleric skill tree for the Cleric. So, okay. Will crafting factories be lootable or at risk?
Wow.
Since we haven't
pretty hardcore.
Since we haven't built them yet, I mean, technically they're going to be in your keep, and you can lose a keep. So yes, they're at risk, and yes, you can lose a keep.
So you're saying I could go jack somebody's factory filled with the best stuff ever?
Well, they would have lost their whole keep at that point. I'm guessing that there's going to be, once we get the rest of the keep stuff online, which is underway as we speak, people are going to make one their kind of hub one that is their centralized. This is where we pour everything into, where all of our good crafting stations are and our factories, and that will be the one that would be kind of devastating to lose. But it's part of the structure, so yes, you could lose it. The one in your Eternal Kingdom, no. Oh, there's the problem. As he says in all caps. Scimitar and shield are weapon discs. That's right, which means you can have one of them. Which means you can take Shield Master and have block, but then you wouldn't have Scimitar Master. But you could take Scimitar Master and take Secutor. And Secutor does have a basic block in there. Thank you, Gratishar, for putting it in all caps.
Now you know what you must do. No.
Now you know. Okay, we're getting close on time here. Look at it scrolled.
Like 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Make it good.
Or
make it short. One or the other. Make it good and short.
That's the ideal.
How sold are you on hold F to harvest, and would you consider at least letting one race not have to get carpal tunnel? So we haven't essentially made the pass that we're going to do with disciplines to make the harvesting stuff have discipline stuff. So we only have one specific harvesting discipline in now, which I think is peripheral vision, which reduces the zoom, and while you're harvesting, you can see, it activates your perception, so you can see stealthers sneaking up on you. That's the only one we have now. There will be more fun things. We didn't have toggle powers when we made the harvesting stuff. The challenge is if it was a toggle power and people started mousing off of the target, it would disengage it because we know that that happens. So we're definitely going to look at that stuff when we go make the harvesting powers.
Right.
3 minutes. What else we got?
But you got 1 minute now.
Will Scoot stay with Fesser or end up as a racial ability? I think Scoot. Zealot Rush.
Zealot Rush.
Zealot Rush is a Nathari ability. So the Confessor does not get it unless they are Nathari. So if you take a Confessor that is a Elkin, they get a dodge roll instead. And the distance on Zealot Rush for the Nathari will be normalized to the other distances that the other racials give. So it's not going to be, I think it's currently at 23 or 25.
Yeah, something higher than everybody else, so
And
that ain't gonna stay.
It's coming in when we move that to the Nathari. So that is their version of dodge.
Enjoy it for now.
What else we got? One more question. What class can wield the hammer in the Forge Master art? What type of weapon is it, since Forge Master isn't a class anymore?
Well, clerics use hammers.
Yes, in fact, they do. That is, in fact, the class weapon that the clerics will get. They also have maces, but the hammer is a cleric thing. And the Stoneborn, which is a race, can be clerics. So if you want to be the guy in that concept art that Greco made, which is really cool, you can be a Stoneborn cleric and take Master of Hammers. Okay, let's take one more question and then end it out. Find it a good one. Scrolling up a little bit.
You can do it, Blair.
You know what would have been? Let's go with. You know, it would have been some high yield, low effort progress.
Okay, what should have been easy?
What should have been easy, and I love this when people say things should have been easy. Things are never easy, except when you think it's hard, then sometimes
Then
it turns.
it's usually easy.
Usually it's the easy things that make you go rewrite a whole chunk of stuff just to make this easy thing happen. But this user, who is this? Creep Lord the God King, thinks that auto run and auto harvest would be easy things.
Auto run, maybe.
Maybe.
I wouldn't have to write it.
And auto harvest, again, I experimented with them being a left click, and man, that ended miserably. The hold left click. We may try it with toggle. Who knows? Now the toggle is a thing.
Yeah, we'll certainly play with it.
Well, but again, it is surprisingly difficult to maintain sync on an animation with the sync on the effect with the actual Duber spew on those channel powers. So we will definitely, because there's a round trip involved. So I want to thank everybody for coming out and seeing Todd and I talk about races. You got to see the prototypes for the racial disciplines, and get some new juicy info out there, and answer all your questions and tell you where we're going with healing. And you will definitely not see that this week. In fact, this week's build will be...
Might be more of the same from last week.
It's going to be last week's build because of the Unity upgrade that we just did. We will have the new stuff coming out in hopefully next week's build. And yeah, speaking of which, do you want to talk about that really quick? Mark gave me an earful yesterday. Sometimes we fix things and they just don't make that week's build. Usually by Tuesday, if something gets fixed after Tuesday, it's not going to make that week's build because we like to stabilize and ensure that we have a playable build for you guys come that weekend. So we don't like to do things for that week's live version post Tuesday. So sometimes we'll fix things. You guys know about it. We know about it. And it's just not going to make that week.
Yeah. And I mean, as much as it's probably as frustrating for us as it is for you having the same bugs out there and us knowing that they're fixed, you just don't have it yet.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, because then it also starts this funny loop process in here, which is Raymond will come over and be like, hey, did you fix this? Max will come over, hey, did you fix this? It's like, yep, fixed, fixed,
I got an email
fixed.
from Gordon. Hey, they're complaining about this still. They've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. Like, yeah, it's,
we fixed it 2 weeks,
ago. Yeah.
and it just hasn't gone out. So that's just the nature of development. And when we get the test server online, that will be less of a thing because that will be updated all the time. So thanks for coming out. We hope to see you again for our regular Q&A, which the ACE Development Partners, which we'll film in 2 weeks from our questions from the ACE Development Partners. And we may do more of these things come in the future, which is just kind of ad hoc questions from you guys and talking about what we're currently building. So thanks for coming out.
Till next time.
See you in the forums.